All right, so today we're taking a deep dive into something that really makes you think.
Ooh, sounds intriguing. What's on the docket?
Well, we're looking at Nobel Peace Prizes.
Hmm.
And get this, a whopping 90% of the winners, yeah, 9 out of 10, were atheists or, non-religious.
Whoa, really? That's a pretty striking statistic.
It is. Makes you wonder, right? Especially because traditionally we often connect religion with, morality and peace.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely challenges that assumption. So, where are we getting this info from?
We're diving into an article, and it's called, wait for it, The Shocking Truth, 90% of Nobel Peace Prize winners were atheists.
Catchy title. I'm already hooked.
I know, right? So the big question is, what does this tell us? Is there like a connection between atheism and a drive for peace?
That's a big one.
Huge! And that's exactly what we're going to try and figure out today.
Okay, so let's unpack this. What's the article's main argument?
Well, they say that atheists, because they question like everything, dogma and stuff, end up with a more well-reasoned and like empathetic understanding of what people go through, of human suffering.
Interesting. So, it's not about rejecting morals, it's more about finding a different path to them.
Exactly.
Now, the article actually quotes, and this is interesting, a Grand Master WaXhira of the Sacred Atlantean Brotherhood.
Okay, I'm listening.
He says, and I quote, "The smarter and more exposed to life one is, the less likely they are to blindly believe in religion."
I don't know about that. It feels a little oversimplified, maybe even a bit disrespectful to people of faith.
Yeah, I agree. There are tons of intelligent, well-informed folks who are deeply religious.
Totally. But I do think the article raises a good point about thinking critically.
Go on.
Could questioning assumptions, even religious ones, maybe lead to better peacemaking?
That's a really fascinating question. The article does contrast, how religion can sometimes lead to division because of strict ideologies.
Right.
And on the other hand, a lot of peacemakers focus on things that everyone can relate to, like universal values, things that go beyond any one religion.
Like interconnectedness, you mean?
Exactly.
So are they suggesting that this questioning, this skepticism, helps atheists build their own strong sense of right and wrong, one that might be especially good for dealing with global conflicts?
That's certainly one way to look at it. And if that's true, it really does make you question the idea that morality is only found in religion.
For sure. So then how do we explain all the good that has been done in the name of religion? There are so many religious people who've dedicated their lives to peace and helping others.
Oh, absolutely. And the article isn't saying religion is bad. It's just showing us a trend, something to think about.
Right. It's not about saying one belief system is better. It's more about understanding how different approaches to morality can impact peace.
Exactly. And to really dig into this, the article spotlights 5 Nobel Peace Prize winners who were atheists.
Okay, I like where this is going. Examples always help.
Right. So by looking at their lives, maybe we can understand how their worldview influenced their work for peace.
Love it. Who's first on our list?
Let's start with Albert Schweitzer, the 1952 winner. He actually started as a devout Christian.
No way.
Yeah, but his journey led him away from traditional religion.
Interesting.
He embraced this idea of reverence for life. That's what fueled his work in Africa.
So he shifted from faith-based morality to something more humanist.
It seems that way, yeah. Instead of seeing his work as like a religious duty, he was driven by compassion and this deep respect for all life.
That's pretty amazing. Who's next?
We've got Bertrand Russell, the 1950 winner.
Yeah.
Now, he actually won for literature,
Okay.
but his writing focused a lot on humanitarianism and pacifism.
Got it.
He was very outspoken about his atheism and campaigned against war and for nuclear disarmament.
So even though his award was for literature, he was still deeply involved in peace efforts.
Very much so. And his story shows how powerful a worldview can be for social change, even if it's secular.
Totally. Okay, who else is on this list?
Next up is Linus Pauling. And get this, he won 2 Nobel Prizes.
2. Wow, what for?
Chemistry in '54 and peace in '62. A staunch atheist, he was very active in peace and humanitarian causes, particularly fighting against nuclear testing.
Wow, so for him, science and ethics went hand in hand.
It seems so. His efforts weren't about religious beliefs. He was motivated by science and protecting humanity.
That's powerful. Science is a driving force for peace. I like it.
Now let's talk about Andrei Sakharov, the 1975 laureate. He was a Soviet physicist and a dissident.
A dissident, so he was speaking out against the government.
Exactly. He was a huge advocate for human rights and getting rid of nuclear weapons.
And he did all this while living under a regime known for silencing dissent. That's incredible.
It is. And it kind of throws a wrench in the idea that atheism is just a product of, Western societies.
Right, here's a guy living under an authoritarian regime, and he's still embodying those same values of peace and justice we've been talking about.
His commitment went beyond the politics around him. It shows that wanting peace can come from deep personal convictions, regardless of religion or politics.
For sure. It reminds us that good can come from anywhere, even under challenging circumstances.
Absolutely. And finally, we have Joseph Rotblat, who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1995. He was a physicist, worked on the Manhattan Project.
The Manhattan Project, wow. The one that developed the atomic bomb.
That's the one. But he ended up leaving.
Really? Why?
Ethical concerns. He was really troubled by what the atomic bomb could do.
That's a huge decision, walking away from something like that.
It speaks volumes about his conscience. He wasn't just blindly following orders. He followed his own moral compass.
And then he dedicated his life to promoting peace through science and ethics. A true testament to putting your values into action.
Exactly. So we've got 5 individuals, diverse backgrounds, united by their lack of belief and their commitment to peace.
A pretty compelling pattern, wouldn't you say?
It certainly makes you think. It seems like a worldview shaped by reason, empathy, and a willingness to question things might be a good recipe for peacemaking.
It's almost like not being tied to strict beliefs allowed them to see global problems in a fresh way.
That's an interesting thought. But it begs the question, what specific thought processes do atheists use that might lead to peacemaking?
That's a great question, one we definitely need to explore further.
Let's keep digging then.
Yeah.
So we've got these amazing examples, right? But let's step back for a second. What does this all mean for how we see religion and peace?
Well, if we're going by the article and that big 90% figure, it kind of flips the idea that religion is, essential for morality and peace. But honestly, I'm not sure we can say for certain based on just one stat.
Totally agree. It's way more complex than that. And to be fair to the article, they're not trying to bash religion as a whole. They're just pointing out a pattern we see with these Peace Prize winners.
Right. And there are tons of religious people who've been amazing champions for peace and justice throughout history.
Absolutely. It's not about saying religion is the problem. It's more about realizing that human motivation is complicated. I mean, religion can inspire amazing acts of kindness, but it's also been twisted to justify some pretty awful things.
Yeah, that's true. So, is the article hinting that maybe a secular, evidence-based approach to morality can sometimes lead to better solutions for peace?
Possibly. It's not about atheism being good and religion being bad, but more about how our beliefs can shape our actions.
Makes sense. It's like they're encouraging us to move past simple labels and really understand the link between what we believe and what we do. But I'm curious, what's so special about an evidence-based approach when it comes to peacemaking?
That's a great question. I think it comes down to being willing to question things, to look for proof, and to be open to other viewpoints.
Okay, I'm following you.
When we're stuck in dogma, it's hard to see beyond our own little bubble. But when we're willing to get into the messy stuff and challenge our biases, new possibilities open up.
So being willing to question things could be a key to finding better solutions to conflict.
It's worth thinking about, right? Remember, the Nobel Peace Prize goes to people who've done extraordinary things for peace. Maybe this ability to question conventional wisdom, to think differently, helped them achieve that.
But couldn't you say that religious people can think critically too? It's not like faith automatically shuts down reason and logic.
Of course.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about everyone in any group. There are tons of religious people who are brilliant critical thinkers and peacemakers. The article isn't saying otherwise.
Got it. It's about looking at a trend, right? Trying to see what factors might be at play.
Exactly. And to bring it back down to earth, this is a call to action for all of us, no matter our beliefs. It's a reminder to be critical thinkers, to question what we hear, and to approach tough issues with empathy and a desire to understand.
So peace isn't something that just happens. It takes real work.
Absolutely. And while the article focuses on atheists, it's not saying they're the only ones who can make a difference. It's about realizing that all of us have the capacity for good. It's about tapping into that shared humanity and working towards a better world.
That's a powerful message. So how do we put all this into practice? How do we move from big ideas to real change?
Well, we can start by thinking critically in our own lives. question things, challenge assumptions, and try to see things from different angles.
That's so important. We get stuck in our own bubbles with people who think like us. We need to step outside of that and listen to other perspectives.
For sure. And let's not forget about educating ourselves about the problems facing the world. Look for good sources of information, consider different opinions, and don't buy into easy answers or overly simplistic ideologies.
It's about going deeper than just headlines and sound bites.
You got it.
Yeah.
But education isn't enough. We need to turn that knowledge into action. Find ways to get involved in your community, support organizations working for peace and justice, and speak up for change. Every little bit counts.
Love that. You don't need some huge opportunity to make a difference. You can start right now with what you have.
Exactly. And never underestimate the power of connecting with people. Reach out to people who are different from you, listen to their stories, and build bridges of understanding. Sometimes the biggest peacemaking happens person to person.
That's a beautiful thought. It's about seeing our shared humanity, even when we disagree.
And that's really the heart of being a peacemaker, don't you think?
Wow, this whole conversation has really been eye-opening. I mean, it's amazing how we started with just the stat about Nobel Peace Prize winners and ended up exploring like the very essence of morality and peace and what makes people want to make the world better.
It's really pushed us to think beyond those simple explanations and those easy answers, hasn't it?
It definitely has. You know, I used to think, maybe unconsciously, that religion was like the main source of goodness and compassion.
Right.
But after this deep dive, I see things so differently now. It's like we were looking at a puzzle, and these atheist peacemakers, they're the missing pieces that suddenly make the whole picture click.
I like that, the puzzle analogy. And you're right. It's not about throwing away the pieces that represent, religious contributions to peace. It's about understanding that the whole puzzle is much bigger and more complex than we thought.
Exactly. And these Nobel laureates, they're showing us there are many paths to a life dedicated to peace and making things right. It's not about following some strict rules. It's about having a certain mindset, a way of seeing the world that puts human well-being first and looks for solutions that help everyone.
And that's a pretty powerful message, don't you think? It tells us that the potential for doing good is everywhere. It's not just for people of a certain faith or a certain way of thinking.
It's like that capacity for good is inside all of us.
Exactly. So if we're not relying on religion for moral guidance, where do we find our own compass? What can we learn from these peacemakers about figuring out right from wrong and that drive to make a difference?
Yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? And I think everyone has to find their own answer. But from what we've seen today, there are some things these atheist peacemakers have in common. This deep dedication to reason and empathy and being willing to question the way things are.
It's like their atheism, or maybe more their refusal to accept dogma blindly, allowed them to really think critically about the world, to see things from different sides, to find solutions that went beyond the usual limits.
It's like they could break free from those old ways of thinking.
Right. And that ability to think critically, to question and challenge the status quo, seems to be super important for how they made peace. They weren't okay with just accepting things as they were. They wanted to get to the bottom of conflicts and find solutions that actually fix the problem.
Instead of relying on easy answers or just following someone else's ideology, they dug deep, they wrestled with the complexity, and they looked for answers based on reason, evidence, and a real understanding of what it means to be human.
And that's a lesson we can all apply, whatever we believe. It's about being curious, about being willing to question things, and about being open to learning from lots of different sources.
It's about being active, shaping a better world, not just passively accepting things as they are.
Exactly. And it's important to realize that peace isn't some static thing. It's an ongoing process that takes work, constant effort, and the courage to speak out against injustice whenever we see it.
So it's not about just waiting for peace to happen. We have to make it happen.
Yes. And every act of kindness, every attempt to connect with someone different from us, every time we choose talking things out instead of fighting, all those things add up to a more peaceful world.
Those are the things we can do every day. So powerful.
Absolutely. Those acts, those choices, we all have that power. We don't need to win Nobel Prizes to make a difference. We can start right here, right now, with how we treat each other, how we participate in our communities, how we use our voices to speak up for what's right.
It's a reminder that we're all connected. What we do matters.
I couldn't agree more. We're not just along for the ride. We can steer the course.
What an incredible conversation. Really thought-provoking. I hope our listeners are feeling inspired, feeling that spark of hope, that desire to be part of creating a better world.
That's what we hope for every episode. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into such a complex topic. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep striving for that more peaceful and just world.
Thanks for listening, everyone.